afternoon and welcome to the Federal Executive Forum celebrating 21 years of profiling excellence in government IT mission programs. I'm Luke McCormack. During today's show, we will discuss progress being made in cloud computing programs within the Department of Defense and Homeland Security agencies. With me on today's show are Tom Sasala, Executive Director, Enterprise Cloud Management Agency with the U.S. Army. Commander Jonathan White, Software Yard Deputy, former Cloud and Deputy Branch Chief, U.S. Coast Guard. Christina Genoese Zerbe, Director, Neptune Cloud Management Office, Department of the Navy. Dominic Bonaducci, Public Sector Product Strategy Lead at Verizon. Anish Patel, Head of Federal, Cloudflare. And Mitch Herkis, Global Head of Government Affairs at Wiz, a powerhouse panel. Tom, we're going to start with you. I know there's a lot of moving parts over there at the Cloud Management Agency, and you all are on fire, coordinating a lot of activities, multi-cloud play, et cetera. Give us a state of the state as to where you stand over there in regards to the journey you're on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, thanks for having me, Luke. I really appreciate it here.
My pleasure.
So I've been in with the agency now for almost a year. I got there about last summertime after some rearrangement of the headquarters Department of Army, and so I'm excited to be here. So we've had a lot of things happen in the last year, and we had a lot of things planned for next year, which I'm sure we'll talk to and get on with in a minute. But so the biggest changes we've made over the last couple of years are really around technology and getting organized for battle. You mentioned the multi-cloud environment, so we've had AWS and Azure for quite some time now. And so we are expanding that sphere of influence into some of the other cloud service providers. And so what became readily apparent to us is the way that we are managing the individual clouds, right? It's not necessarily appropriate for more than a handful. And so we're getting into addressing our scalability, really working on automation, adopting AI technologies where we can, as well as just getting into a situation where we can provide better transparency for our customers. And really excited about some of the work we're doing there, not only on our kind of like performance monitoring side and our scalability and just auto scaling, but also on our financial management side, which is super exciting. So we're getting into an environment where we're getting into true FinOps. We're getting predictive in nature. We're starting to look at our scalability in terms of, are we scaled properly? Are we oversubscribed? In many cases, undersubscription is easy to identify through performance issues. But when you're oversubscribed, you don't necessarily know that. And then because we're getting into an auto tuning environment as well, just ability to scale up and scale down based on user needs and follow the sun and the weekends and that kind of stuff. And so helping the Army to optimize their cloud infrastructure and be more efficient with the taxpayer dollars. And I think it's exciting, and we're going to continue working on it for the next 12 months or so.
Looking forward to more detail, and we really do appreciate that top line. The Army, so massive, so broad, so global. You got a lot of work to do over there, and we really appreciate you digging in. Commander Jonathan White, Software Yard Deputy. Now, that's a new title for you. I always saw you as the guru of cloud for U.S. Coast Guard. You can tell us about that. Maybe tell us a little bit about how that ties into good old Force Design 2028. Coast Guard's on a tear.
Yes, good afternoon, Luke. Thank you for having me on here. Yes, we are executing Force Design 2028. That has been the blueprint for us since we published that late last year. And part of that blueprint was to create a centralized software development and delivery command, or
Nice.
at least an element within our PEO C5I. So we instantiated that a few weeks ago, and I am now the deputy for that. I see it as a natural progression.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, sir. Yes, it's a natural progression, because when you spend the last 4 years building out the initial capability for our cloud environments, putting together our platform technologies, our data environment, our software factory tooling, and really putting all those pieces in place, right? So the puzzle is complete, like the edge of the puzzle is complete, right? That's the first thing you do when you build a puzzle, you build the edge. And then now we're building the inside of that puzzle, which is modernizing software, looking at those platforms, how can we build on top of those, really integrate everything together, and meet all of the other requirements that are in the Force Design Executive Action Plan. So it's a very exciting time for the Coast Guard. I think this is a natural transition where we do a little less on the cloud building, a lot more on the software building. So what do we have today? We have a multi-cloud environment. We're in multiple vendors. We have full connectivity to our on-premise environment. We're doing DISA Thunderdome. We're partnered with ECMA Army for cloud purchasing, and they're a great partner for us. And we're really humming along. So I'm really excited. We have over 20 workloads in production in our cloud environment, mission critical workloads. So I'm really excited to see where this is going, and I'd love to talk more during this program.
Fantastic. You laid the tracks down on the cloud play, and who better than to have you in there lighting up the entire software yard? I love that term, software yard. Christina, not to give away or take away from the U.S. Army size and scope, but I look at the Navy and I think about ships and aircraft and satellites, and it makes my head spin. I know there's a lot of activity going on over there, and you're right smack in the middle of perhaps connecting all this together. Give us a state of the state of the Navy's cloud play.
Man, well, you kind of hit the nail on the head. We're organized a little bit differently than the Army, and we've had some unique challenges because of that. We have a lot of syscoms that are focused on air, ships, whatever the case may be. And so there was a lot of move to cloud in disparate silos. So the last 2 years or so has been really focused on consolidating those environments, ensuring that we have common standards across our environments, and reaching a place where we can scale in a reliable manner. We had probably about 1,000 workloads moved to the cloud out of 10,000 systems. So that is a lot, but percentage wise is pretty low for our actual migration journey. And we found that we got to a point where we couldn't scale further in a reliable way. And so we really had to rethink our architecture and the way that we're doing infrastructure and secure cloud computing architectures across the Dawn. So from that perspective, now we're in a pretty good place with what our architecture wants to be. It's a matter of implementation across the different syscoms, ensuring that with the PAE transitions as directed by SecWar, that we have a good common architecture that we can push towards no matter what the changes are across program offices. So we have a great deal of consolidation that's going on currently. And then we have a lot of focus for the next 12 months on security and ensuring that we have a good multi-cloud framework. Similar to the Army, we are currently bringing up Google and Oracle. We have Amazon and Azure in pretty decent states across the department, but we're building Google and Oracle to leverage the best tools that each service provider have to offer. With Google, we have Google Distributed Cloud, which enables us to take advantage of global transport, which I think we'll cover a little bit more in some of the other questions. But it's really a matter of making sure that we can leverage the best tools that commercial has to offer in the ways that make sense for each program and each provider, while still enabling integration across them.
It's such a massive scale. I'm smiling because oftentimes when we're talking to various agencies, they talk about in the hundreds, and it's like, whoa. And you Army as well, talking the thousands, right? So this has to be cloud, all hands on deck, industrial strength. So it's impressive, and hats off to you for being in the middle of that and making that happen. Dominic, we can't do any of this unless we plug all this together. Verizon right in the middle of that. You all are striped across these civilian agencies, you're striped across these defense and homeland agencies, you're striped across the public sector. Give us a top line as to what the focus is. What are you seeing out there from your perspective?
So that's a great question, and thank you for having me. When you consider the importance of all of these mission critical applications and workloads that are taking place in the cloud, you realize how critically important it is for everyone, whoever's using it and entering it, having access to it, and that there be no single point of failure for access. What excites me the most about this is when you marry the Verizon's fiber holdings plus our mobile network for those access paths and that transport to the cloud, being able to continue providing those services is what gets us out of bed. if you recall in the early days of 5G back in 2020, when the mandate from the DoD was, let's operate through the network as much as we can. There is truly so much you can do on the commercial public network, but there are going to be mission critical and sensitive workloads that need a higher level of security. Enter Verizon's private networks, which is something that we're excited to continue exploring as a wireless mobility option for the use of mobile devices inside of these environments to support access to more mission critical and sensitive workloads. I'll say our mandate at the end of the day and what we're looking forward to is to provide a secure, a seamless, and a simplified experience for every end user to be able to take advantage of the services that are running in the cloud.
Amen on that. And 5G gets out there in the commercial environment, then all of a sudden you're starting to see private 5G. I'll tell you, now that's almost becoming table stakes, right? You all have bucketed that up and packaged it in a way to roll it out there, and heavy use of that super important technology. A niche, Cloudflare. It used to be Cloudflare over there. It's Cloudflare front and center now. You all are really in the middle of these ecosystems and making these capabilities happen. Give us a top line.
Yeah, I'd summarize the progress that we're hearing, as well as what I've heard from the panel here today, as architectural agility over that cloud adoption. I think Christina just kind of said it well last there, is like you're not going to move 100% of your workloads to the cloud. I think all technology goes through phases, and the cloud is going through its own evolution to just the new world that we find ourselves in now, with the buzzword that anybody hasn't said yet. I think for like the initial decade of cloud, the agencies were measured on cloud progress by the percentage of workloads that they moved out of the basement. But of course, that's a legacy metric. So if we're moving the technical debt from a government data center to a JWCC provider without changing the connectivity model to what Dom just talked about on the Verizon scenario, then you haven't fully modernized. You're just kind of changing the billing address to some degree, right? So progress, I think, as we look at it and how we talk to agencies about it, isn't really about where the data lives. It's about how fast and securely that data moves. So if you're a warfighter in the field or an agent on the border, you need to make sure that the data is accessible to you, regardless of the connectivity models and the connectivity that may exist for you out there. And that's the portion that we're most kind of excited about, is turning the network into a programmable asset as opposed to an infrastructure constraint.
Absolutely, and we really do appreciate all the work that you all are doing to unlock those capabilities and make these quite daunting tasks a lot easier to perform. Mitch, how about at Wiz? You all came onto the scene, 10 years ago we weren't talking about Wiz. Now we're always talking about Wiz. Give us a state of the state.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Luke. Look, Wiz has only been around 5.5 years, right?
Right.
And over that time, we've grown tremendously fast. We're in half the Fortune 100, half the Fortune 500. And about 2.5 years ago, the Department of War was one of the first entities, well, was the first entity in the federal government that we came to provide service to. And one of the reasons that we have grown so fast is because everyone is building these multi-cloud complex environments. And the joy of the cloud is you can scale very quickly, right? It's flexible, it's adaptable. But when you have very high necessities around assurance of that environment, you really have to maintain visibility and understanding of risk across the entirety of the environment. And that becomes increasingly hard when you're trying to be that adaptable, flexible environment that the cloud provides. So how do we move at speed of cloud and maintain the assurance that a place like the Department of War requires? And Wiz has been working with several entities within the Department of War to do just that. Software factories is a great example, and we can kind of talk a little bit more about that. But what we're really focused on is ensuring that the security is there to allow for that operational excellence that's needed to deliver software and other features to the warfighter in immediate fashion, like the cloud ultimately promises.
Hey, we're out of the software factory. We're out in the yard now, Mitch. So Let's get on with it, right? And for those, and I know there's folks out in the listening audience, I want to be sensitive to them, that are thinking, what is Wiz? And they're Googling Wiz right now. What is Wiz? Give them 30 seconds on what you all do in the ecosystem, just to be clear.
Sure, I'll always take that opportunity. We work across every major cloud environment. We connect into them through their native APIs and agentlessly provide full visibility into those cloud environments. And then we also provide prioritization of risk within the environments. So it's not just, hey, you may have a vulnerability here that seems really serious. It looks at it in the context. So you may have a 9.8 CVE that's really scary looking, but perhaps it's tucked away somewhere that's very hard to get to. And the real risk is around a misconfiguration on the edge of your network, which links to a high privileged identity to some sensitive data or some embedded keys of some sort. So understanding where the real risk lies from the viewpoint of an attacker and being able to prioritize those, as well as align all that complexity with compliance in real time, is something that allows people to tackle the greatest risk first and understand their compliance in a real-time manner that allows them to move much faster on the operations and maintenance and frankly building. That is why we all do the work we do.
Fantastic. I really do appreciate that. All right, so let me flip it over to Commander White. And let's talk about a specific program. You've been in a lot of mainstream activity on the cloud play. You're now doing the software yard. Give us an example of a specific program you'd like to highlight there.
I have so many, but I think the one I really want to highlight is the one we started with. When we built the cloud, we were like, our cloud environments, we were like, what are we going to do with this? What is the main purpose? And honestly, it's about data storage, data movement, data processing, right? The cloud is optimized for data. Applications are tiers above the data layer. And so what I'm most proud about and what I really like to emphasize here is our Surveyor integrated data environment. It's a composition of tools that we've procured over the course of 3 years. We had a battle plan when we first came out. We wanted to be able to move data from our on-premise environment into the cloud. We had to be able to store and secure that data, catalog it, be able to apply governance principles, process that data for analytics purposes, do the data mesh concept, right? We had all these great grand ideas. Well, guess what? We've realized every single one of those ideas. It's amazing. It's an absolute amazing success story for us. And I really wanted to highlight it because so many people were involved. It's not just my office. We had headquarters offices, we have field offices, we have our marine inspectors, for example. They're using that those tools like crazy right now. We are unlocking the world of data for the Coast Guard. And that is happening because of our cloud migration. We've also, in the back end, right, when on our side, on the infrastructure side, we've also been able to go from managed tools to SaaS versions of those tools because the DoW has been able to authorize those SaaS offerings in an impact level 4 or 5 environment. And we're taking full advantage of those conversion principles. We don't want to own infrastructure. We just want to use the tools. We want all of the features to come in over time. And we are today staring at tools that have AI integrated directly in them because of those decisions. We didn't have to do anything. It just appears. So the power of the cloud is twofold. One is we can transport all of this data, process it at scale, and make it available for use across the spectrum. The second thing is that the partnership with commercial entities across the board in the cloud is humongous. And we can leverage all their investments that they do at a secure a security level that meets our compliance requirements almost instantaneously. And we're getting the benefits from that immediately. And those partnerships are awesome. The data environment highlights that great. And it's also enabling a lot of Force Design 28 objectives like Coastal Sentinel, which is all about pulling data in from the edge, processing it, and making it available to our operators. And we're just scratching the surface there. And that's a future topic, but awesome.
Fantastic, and love that recognition of the partnership. And that's the cloud is a gift that just keeps on giving. It's not innovation today, it's innovation tomorrow, it's innovation over the next decade. So, all right, we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking about cloud, Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, and then the partnerships that make this work. Anish, we're going to throw it over to you at Cloudflare. How about highlighting a specific example that you would like to illuminate for the listening audience regarding what's going on in respect to the cloud implementations?
Yeah, so for those that may not be quite as familiar, at a very high level, Cloudflare just makes it safer to securely access things on the internet. And in the world that we live in, everything is practically connected to the internet these days, right? One way or another, it gets to the internet and through the internet. So if we think about even about something like the warfighter that presents itself in kind of the tactical mission networks that need secure and reliable connectivity across the US or across the globe. So I'll start with just kind of a simple analogy to say, if we think about how we used to navigate directions of the physical map, right? You had this kind of that would be kind of legacy IT model of relying on a physical map and compass, and you had to carry the tools with you, and you'd constantly calculate depending on where you were, your exact position on a fixed point. So all that was kind of slow and manual, and there's like this human error kind of component to that, right? So GPS changed the mapping kind of model in the same way that Cloudflare changes the concept of like networking in the cloud. And you don't log into a specific like GPS satellite. You don't really care which specific satellite is orbiting closest to you at any given moment. All that is invisible to you, right? The capacity that you have in GPS is just simply blankets the earth. And so Cloudflare and the massive networks that you think about, they basically just allow you to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible and make that feel local. You don't want to feel like you had to traverse the other side of the world to get to a secure location where you're accessing your data. And so just turning on your receiver and the data is instantly like pulled down exactly where you are standing. That is the power of the modern network and the needs for some of the services and kind of capabilities are going to be needed as people move towards kind of these newer generation of application development. And so as I think about that from a just kind of success profile, it's in automating the policy enforcement at the first hop, right? You don't want to wait until it gets to the front door of the Army, Navy, Coast Guard. You want that to happen far away, as close to the origin of that attacker or that service as possible. And so by moving that policy decision point to the edge of Cloudflare, we are neutralizing a lot of these threats before they ever become noise for any of the agencies that we support.
And it's really fantastic if you think back 5 years ago, probably even 3 years ago, what you're describing that capability, unheard of. So hats off to you and the team over there at Cloudflare. Tom, how about at U.S. Army Enterprise Cloud Management Agency? Give us an example. I know you have a lot of stuff going on over there. Give us a highlight of something that you'd like to double tap on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like what Commander White did and talked a little bit about programs that have been ongoing for a while. I want to cover actually two important programs to the Army that are emerging that cloud is enabling, something that we probably wouldn't have been able to do 5 years ago, as you just mentioned, Luke. And that's our Enterprise Business System Convergence, EBSC, and then our Next Generation Command and Control, which is NGC2. Both of those programs are emerging programs. We're building them right now. They're very important to the Department of the Army. They are centerpieces of our business environment and our tactical environment. And without cloud, with cloud-enabled technologies and all the vendors out there that are helping us, we wouldn't be able to get there, right? And so you're taking 5 very large enterprise resource and planning environments, and you're sticking it into one operational core, something that has never really been done before. I know in my time in the Department of the Navy, they have the world's largest ERP. So now if you take 5 and you put it all together, it becomes very massive, right? And so there's a critical data management challenge there, right? Just a tremendous amount of data. And so we're facing some scaling issues locally or even in the individual clouds that are running our individual ERPs today that are going to get, many times more challenging whenever we start scaling to the size of what the Department of the Army is and the transactions we're talking about. And as we pivot from more of kind of Department of Army centric services into the broader Department of War, and then out into the broader federal government where we're doing transactions directly with the Treasury, we're doing disbursements directly from the Treasury rather than going through DFAS. These are going to be critically important, right? And I wanted to highlight NGC2 because it's a completely different problem, right? It is compute at the edge. It is supporting the warfighter at the pointiest point of the spear, right? And so that's a whole nother set of challenges. We talked about kind of the network and kind of making the network transparent, right? When you're out in the field and you're very far forward, like the Army is in many cases, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard. I equate the Army as an expeditionary workforce to more like oil and gas, right? Where you don't have ubiquitous connectivity, right? And so things are starting to come online now that are completely changing the calculus and the dynamic for how we get access to the network and how we do processing, right? A lot more processing down on the edge, a lot more localized sensor to shooter sort of management from our perspective, right? And then that generates a whole nother set of challenges of how do you really command and control a fleet of drones, for example, that are forward deployed, right? How do you get that data back to know that that telemetry that you're getting is authentic, is valid, is secure, has high integrity and insurance and a variety of other things. So there's challenges kind of replete throughout the Army, obviously in the Navy, Air Force, and other folks as well. But in this case, we have two really major systems that are being able to accelerate, right? And move forward in an environment that, quite honestly, the Army's probably never seen ever in its history, right? In 250 plus years now. And so it's super exciting for the Army. It's super exciting for ECMA to be able to support that. I refer to ECMA as our kind of a combat support agency to the Army because we are providing that core technology to enable all of this. And so that's that's kind of the model that we want to fit into. We want to continue to help the Army accelerate and move into areas that we've never been before.
Super exciting. I think about the power of computing on the edge and the power of these, these AI agents on the edge. It's just, and the things that you're doing and going to be able to do is phenomenal. Dominic, let's talk about capability that Verizon has, and maybe you want to highlight something. I sort of touched on, private 5G. There's probably other things. Give us an example of a program that you'd like to highlight.
Yeah, well, I think Tom somewhat stole my thunder a little bit, but he
That's
certainly
okay.
alluded to
He's allowed to do that.
what we're thinking about. And I'm just going to take it back in time just a little bit because, as cliche as it's going to sound, coming from a carrier, it truly is fascinating. The evolution from 4G to 5G was a force multiplier for so many reasons. There are a number of reasons, why 5G was better than 4G, but top of the list would certainly be the increased capacity and the new network architectures that can be employed. Tom referred to edge compute. That was extremely exciting for us to be able to, bring that cloud, not just from this kind of abstract idea of data centers and, far away from the end user, but actually bringing that compute closer to the end user to reduce that round trip time. But what that capacity means and what truly kind of just blows my mind and many of our customers' minds is, we've been thinking so much and talking so much in the context of accessing the cloud through our computers, tablets, phones. But what 5G really brought to bear, especially with the capacity, is it's not just humans that need to get access to the cloud. It's machines, it's sensors. Those sensors and shooters and the instrumentation in between them need to be able to access those workloads because that's mission critical data that needs to be processed for command and control, for situational awareness. And that's a huge foundation that we've been excited to build on. And I think moving forward, what 5G also did for us more anecdotally or socially is that it really created a proving ground and a sandbox for us in the DOW to be able to play in together. Prior to that, it was a very strictly transactional relationship. You needed a line of service, you needed a phone, you come to your carrier. But now there's, in the early days of 5G, the joke I made is all of our public sector customers had the same last name. It was PhD. And now as the customers are more familiar with this, the customer base is becoming more pragmatic. We get to change the lexicon and stop talking in technical terms and start talking in desired outcomes. And that is truly exciting for us.
Fantastic, and we really do appreciate that capability and the catch on machine to machine, a very important part of the ecosystem. Christina, the scale that you all are operating at, once again, just I have to admire the hell out of that. I know you've got a lot of different programs out there. Why don't you highlight one of them for us?
Yeah, so there's so many to choose from. I'm actually going to comment on a couple because I think they're really important in the way that they play together. So one is CDX, which is our API gathering place, essentially. So we are making a platform where we have APIs across multiple data sources, and we can go to ensure that we have the data sources that we need that are connected to the right places. And this way we have a single point where programs can come to and access the APIs that they need in order to get the data that they need for mission. I do want to comment just briefly on some of the transport elements that have been commented on by some of the other panelists. Being able to utilize and leverage commercial capabilities gives us an advantage in mission resilience we haven't had before. So using Dawn data centers for our core capabilities, as we have in the past, creates this significant target for our adversaries, and one that's not difficult to root out and represents a pretty big risk. So by utilizing diverse transport and in many cases commercial infrastructure, that allows us to keep mission online and inhibit the impact of adversarial attacks should a conflict arise. So I think that's really, really important. And it kind of segues into the other program I wanted to bring up, where in the Dawn specifically, I think the work that we're doing to improve shipboard communications and operations is incredibly important and also just wicked cool. The fact that we can update software ashore, send it to an edge case like a carrier via wireless internet in a seamless manner is something even 2 years ago I might have doubted was possible. The connectivity issues that you see on afloat platforms is no laughing matter. I mean, we do not want our warfighter, when deployed, to be dependent on radio frequencies. We need diverse transport. We need wireless. We need to be able to get data from point A to point B, no matter where it is or no matter how connected it is, from a wired perspective. So that's the majority of it. The capabilities there, we've proven it. Now it's just a matter of ensuring that we can scale in a way that is secure, enables the warfighter, and handles deployments in a manner that reflects our fiduciary responsibility.
Absolutely. And all this Leo play now that's out there is really unlocking a lot of these capabilities. And
really is.
Hats off to all of you all to be able to provide those capabilities to the ships. Mitch, how about at Wiz? You top-lined a lot of things, including explaining, very nice explanation of what Wiz is. Wiz is. How about a specific program you'd like to top line?
Sure. I mean, we've been talking a lot about like the pointy end of the spear, but like we also have to enable our warfighters and give them the support necessary to do what they need to do. One of the programs I think we're most proud of being a part of is working with the Marine Corps Community Services. They provide childcare, behavioral health services, lodging, retail, all the things that help those families, out and the warfighter do what they need to do in their personal lives as well as their professional lives. And they have to continuously build programs around those, right? How do you access those services? They do it online. And if you are taking a year and a half, 2 years to create authorization to operate a new service, that software is going to be out of date. It's going to be clunky. It's not going to meet the expectations that we expect day to day and use in the private sector, frankly. And maybe those services are harder to access and not what people want from the services. So when you're doing really what is like a $1.7 billion enterprise there, you have to move fast. You have to compete, frankly, with the private sector in many instances. So how do you move fast? How do you get that continuous ATO and continuous update to that software environment and maintain the assurances you need? We've been helping them do that, move from, taking maybe sometimes 2 or more years, even in some cases, to have an authorization to operate, to making it minutes or hours at tops. So if you can bring that down to the point where you're doing continuous delivery and CI/CD, you can really deliver like the private sector. And that's what's necessary to really meet the expectations we all expect today in providing services.
2 years, 10 months, 2 months. That's 1987. I mean, that is so old school, and we really appreciate the fact that you all need to help them move at the speed of mission, right, as they like to say. And I think that's really important. So hats off to you for doing that. All right, we're going to talk about priorities. Tom, we are going to start with you. I know there's a whole dump truck load of them. Give us the top 2 or 3 for 2026
Yeah,
at
absolutely.
your shop.
So we've got a lot of things going on, obviously, and so I would say this year is really about setting the foundation and setting us up for success moving forward. Top priority for us right now really is getting that observability to make sure that we know what is in our cloud environment, what the health and well-being of it is, and really providing that information to our customers, which is the kind of next priority, which is transparency, both in terms of operational performance, scalability, our own internal operations inside of ECMA as we support our customers. And then from the financial management perspective, how do we provide transparency not only to our customers on how much they're spending, how much they could be spending, right? And how do we relay that back up to senior leadership, whether it's CIO or all the way up to the Department of War level and all the way out to Congress, right? And so I think those are really important things. The third most important priority, I would say, for us right now is really just cleaning up the battlefield from years of maybe bad behavior.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, so when I got there, my lead engineer was like, in the past we've had the Burger King approach to cloud, which is have it your way, right? And so that turns out to be really hard to manage and maintain. I jokingly say with great power comes great responsibility. And so when you enable people with tools that they've never had before, they get stars in their eyes, and they engage in, say, risky behavior at times. And so a lot of times we don't discover this until it's too late. I think as Mitch mentioned, breaches and whatnot. People do things that maybe they shouldn't be doing. And so implementing just better boundaries. Again, when I was on the Navy side, right, it was buoys, not barriers, right? We want to keep people in the channel. We want to keep them safe. If they choose to voluntarily deviate from the channel, they do so at their own risk, right? But then that goes back to that observability. We know when they're doing it, right? And we can keep an eye on them, and maybe a little bit extra bubble wrap than we would normally have, right? And so that standardization, that blueprinting, those run books, the scripts that they should just click and deploy rather than manually doing everything themselves. Those are all the priorities for the next 12 months for us. I think it's going to be really, really important to really catapult that level of support that we have, that we are providing as an agency to our customers, to decrease that barrier to entry for them. And then it gets them up and running faster. Yeah, we don't want 2 years worth of ATO processes, right? We just had a situation with one of our SaaS vendors where we ATO'd them before their product was even available, general availability, because
I
we
love
needed
it.
it. Yeah, we needed it, right? And it's something that we wanted to push forward. And so obviously we're working through them. We gave them what we know is an ATO with conditions, right? They had certain things that they had to do along the way, and we worked with them. And so that's a completely different approach than maybe where the Army was even a year ago. And so that might have been a special case, but we're trying to push that forward and make it more ubiquitous throughout the Army and the DoW for that matter.
Fantastic, and we really appreciate the outline of those priorities. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking about cloud computing at Department of Defense, Homeland Security. We're talking about priorities in 2026. Christina, Navy, I know you've got a shipload of them. Let's talk about the top 2 or 3.
Yeah, so a couple of things I want to focus in on, especially this year. And remember, for fiscal year 26, we're halfway through the year.
Oh, yeah.
So we're swiftly moving through the timelines. But for this year, my office is really focused on ensuring that acquisitions are in a place where mission owners can access the cloud that they need in a seamless manner. In consolidating to JWCC, for instance, it's been a real challenge for mission owners and for some of our syscoms to go and put contracts in place on their own, or task orders on the IDIQ. So what we're trying to do is we're actually emulating a lot of what ECMA has done. I've been in touch with his office, with Tom's office, about emulating their acquisition strategy. I think the Navy's done, I think the Navy's done some really good work on the innovation front, but we haven't been creative in our acquisitions, and that has inhibited us. So that's something that we're really focusing in on this year. The other things that we're working on are multi-cloud and integration across different service branches. So for one, on the Dawn side, we have the Navy and the Marine Corps. So we have a lot of requirements that differ between our Navy syscoms and our Marine Corps syscom. So making sure that there's a framework where both environments can work seamlessly, even with those different environments, is really important. It's also a little bit of a programming challenge because the Marine Corps has money that is programmed by Congress and the Navy can't use, but the Navy can use their funds to support the Marine Corps. So we're trying to really focus on that Navy framework and enable that infrastructure so that the Marine Corps can focus on Marine Corps mission and not their core IT infrastructure. The last thing I'll say, because I know time is a factor here, from that multi-cloud mentality, one of the things that we've been really looking hard at is across the COCOMs globally, our command and control applications and services aren't just Navy. They're Army, they're DOW, they are Air Force. And so if I have an application that's really important to INDOPACOM, which is Navy AOR, area of responsibility, but it's run by the Army and it's in Google Cloud and my Navy apps are in AWS, those applications for command and control still need to talk to each other. They still need to be integrated. And that means that our joint forces have to be even more joint than they ever have been before from a data perspective and an integration perspective.
Interesting catch there. Appreciate those that outline. Commander White, top 2 or 3 priorities for you in 2026. I know there's a lot of stuff going on at the Coast Guard these days.
There sure is a lot of stuff going on, but I think I'm going to answer the top priority with the drumbeat that we're following, and that's zero trust. We have a deadline. It's 2027, and we have to meet zero trust, right? So if you take zero trust as your top line argument, what falls out from that? Well, it's baseline infrastructure. I think we've got a good check mark on that right now. The second one is modernizing your application portfolio. That's where I led in with our conversation is how are we going to modernize that app portfolio? And it's a confluence of I'd say 3 different main production lines that we're looking at. The main one is taking commercial off-the-shelf technology and either being able to use it directly as software as a service or deploy it as a managed container environment or something to that effect, where you're taking a product, you're deploying it and using it in your environment, you're integrating it in. As Christina said, it's so important to be able to integrate the data lines across your app portfolio. So we're able to bring those in. We've proven that out several times now. And we're actually conducting 2 pilot projects right now to do rapid deployment of containers as a service type projects. The second rung of that is low code platforms. We don't want to own the full stack of software. It is such a pain to own the full stack. And if I can outsource most of that stack and receive the benefits of a bottom line integrator doing a lot of the grunt work, I can focus on that app tier, right? I can focus on that user experience.
Absolutely.
I can focus on the integrations. That makes a huge difference in app delivery. And the last piece is cloud native deployments. We're talking about cloud. The cloud brings hundreds of services. How can I leverage most of those services to just get stuff out of my way, right? Just instantiate them, make them available, pay the consumption bill, and move out. The second piece, which we touched on with some of our vendor partners on here, is automation and visibility. How do I automate all my provisionings, automate the scanning and compliance checks, make things visible, right? When you deploy stuff in the cloud, it tends to like grow legs and disappear, right? And we need to be able to surface those things. This is very much in line with FinOps as well. It's not just a security problem. It's not just an inventory problem. There's a cost element to this. So being able to do all these things and still comply with zero trust is a huge enabler, and that's our top priority for the coming years.
Absolutely. We really do appreciate that. We're going into turbo mode here. I do want to squeak in top priority for Wiz 2026, Mitch. Number 1 priority.
Oh, because this wouldn't be a conversation in 2026 if we didn't talk about AI. So I'm just going to talk about both using AI in environments adds a layer of complexity and managing that complexity as we rapidly scale to adopt AI across the services as an enabler, frankly. We also have to secure that. And that looks a little bit different than your average application. It has complexities in the context of the environment, and how do we ensure that it is only accessing the right data and right identities and all of these things at the right time. It's just another layer on top of this multi-cloud network, and ensuring that it remains appropriately isolated, connected to the right things and not connected to the wrong things, adds a lot of new features. And we also have to remember that by definition, all of this artificial intelligence that's being adopted across various SaaS platforms, IaaS, and models are being incorporated into our cloud, whether through an API or dropping a model in. All of this is by definition novel, right? This is things that we have really not used for very long, right? So how do we do it in an appropriate manner and maintain that security visibility and adopt the new latest threat research and threat patterns into our resiliency strategy? That's something we are certainly looking at, and we're trying to enable others to do as well.
Fantastic. Anish, top priority in 2026 for Cloudflare?
I think top priority for us boils down to using the same buzzword as Mitch over there, allowing AI innovation to happen without compromising on the security and governance, and doing so through some level of autonomous defenses, right? And so the pace at which the bad guys are able to scale the attacks in a very cost-effective way is never been seen before. And it feels weird to say that, because ultimately, like, these attackers now can take literally entire nations offline in a cost-effective way. They are very good at finding ways to do that cheaply. And so as we think about how government is a good fiduciary responsibility for the government, and making sure that we're using the right things, allowing the tools that we have at our disposal to be used in a way that maximizes our ability to combat that is the biggest threat I think we have to address.
Really appreciate that. Dominic, number one priority for Verizon 2026?
Well, when you consider the mandate to adopt commercially available off-the-shelf technology, that doesn't just apply to hardware. There's kind of two ovens at Verizon. We have our public sector product development, and we have our enterprise product development. There are many use cases within enterprise that have parity to the needs and demands within the public sector, whether it's a MILDAB or a federal civilian agency. So my mandate this year is to start pulling from those lessons learned, best practices, and new use cases, whether it's running on the edge or running in the cloud, and bringing those to public sector, looking across every domain and vertical, whether it's sports and entertainment, agriculture, mining and gas, you name it.
Fantastic. All right, we need to wrap it up here. We always like to end with fast forwarding 2 to 3 years, and what's that future going to look like? Mitch, let's start with you at Wiz. Coming out of the Petri dish, what's that demand signal looking like in 2 to 3 years from now?
I think expecting continuous optimization and resiliency of cloud environment is going to become just the standard. Right now, it's kind of still being adopted, and people are doing security in silos. I think we're going to have to ultimately, to keep up with the demand, rethinking the actual organizational structure and ensuring that we are making the most of our time of our security professionals, because frankly, what we are doing now historically just doesn't scale. We need to move out of the verticals and have people able to move across identity, vulnerability, application security, and understand the context of these threats as a whole, and be able to move quickly to create more resilience.
Fantastic, and we really do appreciate that top line. Anish, we're fast forwarding 2 to 3 years. What's it look like for Cloudflare?
I'd say there's a lot of money flowing into the development of data centers and IT infrastructure, obviously, but the future of IT infrastructure doesn't have to wait for the larger pipes or the bigger clouds to be developed. I think the industry finally has a reason to move from kind of public clouds to distributed edge at scale. And this is primarily to support the real-time hyperlocal decision-making that's required by the AI-powered capabilities that the government is enabling the users to develop over time here. And so it's this programmable edge that shortens and eliminates that distance between the command and the control. I think that's a key thing that we're seeing as a driver over the next few years.
Really do appreciate that. Dominic, how about at Verizon? Are we going to be talking 6G? What's the deal 2 to 3 years from now?
2 to 3 years from now, what I hope to be in the throes of doing are validating the desired outcomes for what 6G could bring to bear. We're
Okay.
still in the studying phase of defining those standards. Anyone who says they know what 6G is speculating. That is something that needs to be baked out and studied. But what I'm excited to do in the next 2 to 3 years is we can anticipate some of the use cases that it will bring with it. So things like, the further integration of AI into the network to optimize anything and everything that can be optimized. As it concerns cloud, distributed compute, simultaneous applications where compute different workloads and different containerized software is running simultaneously in different compute modalities. New form factors, new capabilities for the RAN, integrated sensing and communications, are really exciting one. There's a lot happening. We have a nice long road to 6G, but there's a lot of work to be done in between now and then before we actually get there.
6G still in the petri dish. That's okay. So we're looking forward to that. Christina, I'm a freshly minted Annapolis grad. I'm out on an aircraft carrier. I'm sitting in my bunk and I'm like, wow, this is better comms than I had in my living room in Oklahoma. Is that what I can expect 2 to 3 years from now?
I mean, some of that's happening today.
All right, I love it.
MSC, for instance. So, I mean, they're a civilian branch of the Navy, but MSC has wireless on almost all of their ships now. So their folks can access Wi-Fi anywhere in the world.
So 2 to 3 years from now, what can we expect?
So I've kind of a good news, bad news story there. One, we are already in our POM cycle for trying to POM for and realize.
And POM, for those that might not know what that is?
That's where we program for funds with Congress. So if you're
budget
a program
formulation,
of record, when you're a program of record, you have to tell Congress what you plan to do years before you do it. And then they have to say, yeah, we'll fund that, or no, we won't. And as we know, Congress and budgets sometimes lag, and that makes innovation really hard. So what I want to see in 2 to 3 years is a real robust software-defined networking infrastructure and fabric. So being able to spin up and spin down software on demand. If I have edge hardware, it shouldn't matter what the brand is. It should only matter what the capability it has. So if I have an Oracle Edge box or Dell or Cisco, I should be able to run whatever software is compatible with the compute that's available there. So for instance, when we talk about like Azure Local or Google Distributed Cloud, we want to be able to spin up and spin down resources on edge nodes, depending on what the mission need is in the moment. So if there's a software that may be compromised or no longer needed, I want to be able to remotely spin that resource down and then spin up new resources or software to access the data or services that are needed for that current mission. So it really, I'm encouraged to hear that what we're talking about doing in the next 2 to 3 years does actually align with where industry wants to go. And I think that's really promising.
Absolutely. As all of you have pointed out, leveraging what is happening in the industry and pushing the industry, if you will, in some cases, I think is absolutely a good thing. All right, we're fast forwarding 2 to 3 years from now. We've got 2028 rolling out there, the program. In the software yard, what do I see out there? I thought it was really cool, by the way, what Christina was pointing out with that API like clearinghouse. Am I going to see some barns out there, or what's the deal in the software yard? What are we going to see?
It'll be a whole range of animals. It'll be great. But no, the important thing that I'm seeing already in this year, I mean, it's only been a couple months, right? But what I'm seeing as I'm working across the aisles of our organization, the Coast Guard has 11 missions, so we have tons of different perspectives out there on how we should leverage the software, right? It's really unlocking the imagination and innovation. There's clusters of people who have been wishing for capability that they could use their data, they can process it, and they can do their job more efficiently. They're rising up, right? And before, the answer was before we were, established in our cloud environment, the answer was, well, maybe you can get a high performance laptop and maybe crunch that under your desk somewhere or whatever, right? We just can't service that kind of need. And now the answer is, I'm going to store your data in a cloud storage environment. I'm going to give you as much compute as you need with GPU horsepower, and you're going to get it done in minutes or in hours, depending on how fast you can code or use AI assistants, right? And that answer is completely changing how people are looking at their problem statements. So 2 to 3 years from now, what I'm seeing is it's not just delivering apps, right? It's delivering an ecosystem where you can grow innovation, you can do work faster and more efficiently. You're leveraging your data. The apps are like that's the icing on the cake, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the sponge, right? The actual cake itself is really what we're after. And the software yard will enable all layers of that. But really, the people doing that work are the people who have the problem, right? They have the data, they have the problem, they can answer their problem. So self-service, in my mind, is, and AI is unlocking this, right? Is the real panacea here, but in a governed and controlled way, right? So
Absolutely,
there's
with some
definitely a
boundaries
balance
around
there,
it.
right?
Mm-hmm.
There's absolutely a balance. So governance and compliance and freedom of movement, we got to find that nice, happy harmony. And I think it's a sliding scale, depending on what you're working on. But if you're able to achieve that, I think that would be a huge win for the Coast Guard, huge win for DOW and the government at large. And I'd like to make a plug for working with leaders in cloud across the government. The DOW has a great program, which I'm hoping I can attend, is the Cloud Way Forward briefing. It's that they have it every week, and there's so much great information that is passed there. And I love the community for cloud and data, and I'm happy to be a part of it still.
And love to see the collaboration, and hats off to you and the role that you're playing over there. Tom, you've been there for a year. Fast forward 2 to 3 years from now, you'll have an entire flywheel effect going on. What do you expect to see 3 years from now over at the Enterprise Cloud Management Agency,
Yeah,
or the U.S.
absolutely.
Army in general?
Yeah, so I think just pulling the thread and pivoting off of what both Christina and Commander White said, I think we're going to be in an environment where we're going to move from bespoke solutions into things today that are unique. They will be commodities in 3 to 4 years from now, or 2 to 4 years from now. The network will become more transparent. The integration of the tools and the disparate consumer applications will not be unique anymore. They will be fully integrated, and they will get more transparency, not only in terms of data movement, but also in terms of the processing and the capability. I'll go out on a limb and be a little bit of a heretic and say that we're not going to be talking about AI in 2 to 3 years, because it'll just be part of the ecosphere.
Nice.
It'll be yet another service that we offer. It's an augmentation, a computer-assisted augmentee to a human, and it'll just be part of what we do. I probably said this maybe 15 years ago. As the workforce matures and as more digital natives get into the workforce, especially in the Department of War, where the workforce is a little bit older than the average bear, right? You're going to see a pivot, and I was predicting, and Tom might remember this. The digital natives come into the environment, there's going to be a much significantly higher demand for mobile technology. And Christina hit it on the head. We have Wi-Fi everywhere now. That was almost unheard of 5 or even 10 years ago, right? And so having ubiquitous network connectivity, whether it's for something that is mission critical or not, is going to be really, really important. And I think the service providers, the commercial service providers, the cloud service providers coming together and working together as an integrated unit. I know there's competition and there's market space and individual profits and losses and whatnot, right? But having everyone work together to provide a mission to the DoD so that we truly can commoditize some of this is going to be really, really important. And the last thing that I'll mention is just, you're going to see, and you're seeing it now, you've been seeing it for the last couple of years, but a much greater reduction in the barrier to entry to just basic things that have been so hard to do in the DoD for a long time. When I started, getting software loaded on your computer was a multi-month effort, whether it was a simple application or you want to do some sort of software development. Now I can log in today. We got a data analytics platform. We have a low-code, no-code, a series of low-code, no-code platforms. I can develop my own workflows. I can develop my own case management systems. I can do this on the fly. I can do analytics. I can prove, dashboards, integrate data on the fly. And I really like what Christina was talking about as kind of API clearinghouse. The Army kind of tried to do this a few years or so ago. It fizzled out, but maybe it's time to get back with what's going on out at the Navy and do some integration there. And then just the last thing is just center of excellence. Commander White mentioned it. We need to leverage each other more, I think. There's no reason that we need to plow the ground every single time on every new topic, right? And so just recognizing that if the Coast Guard is a center of excellence for application development, or the Navy is a center of excellence for data integration, let's leverage that as a department and let's move out together, right? I think that's going to be critical. There's too many problems and too many adversaries for us to continue operating independently. And so I think integration, not only from a force structure, but also from a technology structure, is going to be just paramount over the next 3 or 4 years.
Amen. Ending on that collaboration theme, we really do appreciate that. And hats off to all of you. And I'd like to thank each one of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for this program. I'd like to thank all of our sponsors for supporting us on this show. I'd like to thank the good people here at Federal News Network that make our program so successful and enjoyable. And most of all, I'd like to thank the listening audience out there that tune in every month. You've been listening to the Federal Executive Forum, part of the Federal News Network.